So this leads us neatly to one of the most infamous debates around public libraries, the debate known as the Great Fiction Question. Now, this was a term coined in 1897 by Thomas Greenwood in an article for the Greenwood's Library Yearbook. He said a very wide and extensive knowledge of the public libraries of the country enables us to state that not one public library in Britain deliberately buys novels which are either trashy or immoral. Now, this argument was reprinted in an issue of the Library World, Volume 6, 1904. And he also says in that, for some reason or another, best known no doubt to themselves, certain librarians are always ready to join in the hue and cry against public libraries, and to lend the sanction of their authority to the general execration of fiction reading, thus giving a weapon to the enemy which is promptly used to thrash municipal libraries into a pulp. Now, some of the advocacy in the article is very old-fashioned. He states, for instance, that women who are practically domestic drudges and have no variety in life save the occasional episode of new babies, who from one year's end to another are engaged in an endless turmoil of dishwashing, floor scrubbing, clothes washing, bed making, for whom the novel comes as absolutely the sole intellectual amusement. And he is a boor who would deny them such a cheap, helpful, and stimulating pleasure. Now, the misogyny aside, what Greenwood was trying to argue was that a lot of the debates around public libraries in the early period were around the argument that they should not lend fiction. In fact, if you look back at the Library Association conferences of the time, there was a lot of debate that libraries should only provide access to what are deemed to be worthy books and not books that are deemed to be unworthy. Now, again, you might look at this as some kind of historical artifact, but again, these arguments have been used in recent history to argue against the provision of public library services. So it is an argument we have to understand. You will have some people, for instance, who suggest that libraries should not provide fiction, should not provide what they deem to be low quality fiction. And again, these are debates and arguments that we have to have a response to. A more recent example from Ex Libris. Public libraries are perceived as desirable institutions by a largely uncritical man in the street. It's a position few other areas of the public sector enjoy, and one that is less easy to justify. So we used that quote in the previous lecture, but what they go on to say in Ex Libris was that there is really no justification for having to pay for access to music in a library while books are free. The specific quote says, "It's difficult to see why borrowing a Mills and Boon romance should raise issues of principle very different from the borrowing of a recording of Beethoven or Bach." So again, what that report's trying to emphasise is that, there are some things that society might deem to be worthy, like Beethoven or Bach, and if you're using a library service, you might have to pay to borrow these versus having to borrow what they deem to be clearly less worthy, a Mills and Boon romance. Now, I'm sure all of us who work in libraries would disagree with this argument, but equally, we need a way of disagreeing that states the value of borrowing those kinds of books. So it's not a straightforward, that person's wrong. We have to understand that, it's an argument that has to be rebutted and rebutted forcefully. Ex Libris also argued that public libraries deprive authors and publishers of income, and it had a significant impact on them. Now, public lending right is something you'll probably be aware of, and that was introduced in 1979 Public Lending Right Act as a way of curbing that criticism. The idea being that authors would receive an amount of money, a small amount of money, for every time their book's borrowed. And this was enacted in 1982 and is still in existence today. Now, it uses a sample of library authorities to arrive at a picture of the most borrowed items. Authors have to register with the public lending right to receive payments, and the maximum that could be allocated to an author is £6,600, based on a rate of 6p per loan. And recently, in the past week or so, this has been extended to e-book lending as well. So it's keeping up with modern trends. It's also available for audiobook narrators as well. So clearly, it's something that has had to keep up. So why is public lending right important? Well, it's a good argument that a library worker or a librarian can provide against those who say, well, what about the authors whose books are lent and they're obviously impacted in terms of income? Public lending right is a good defence to say, well, this has been recognised by the government and authors are rewarded for books being borrowed in the library. And that's an important counterpoint to those who might take that tack. I'm going to spend a little bit of time closing this lecture on the promotion of reading. Now, again, clearly this is a mission of a library that is vitally important and a core mission of libraries. But there are various aspects to it that we need to be aware of in terms of serving different user communities. Now, in terms of the Public Libraries and Museums Act 1964, Section 7.2 relates specifically to this, and it says that libraries should be encouraging both adults and children to make full use of the library service and providing advice as to its use. And this leads me directly onto the concept of reader development. Now, reader development is the intervention in the reading habits of library users. CILIP has defined it as a body of professional practice which encouraged readers to open up their reading choices, share their reading experiences, and raise the status of reading as a creative activity. So reader development is an initiative where people actually get involved with users in terms of, giving them advice on types of reading, trying to lead them on into other books that might interest them based on what they've read before. And it obviously entails active involvement between the library worker and the user to do this. Now, there have been various reader development programs in the 20 years or so since it's become an important professional concern. One such example was the Branching Out initiative, which ran between 1998 and 2006. And within this initiative, the focus was on the good practice in reader development, so there was a key emphasis on staff training. Within the literature itself, they state that reader development sells the reading experience and what it can do for you, rather than selling individual books or writers. It builds the audience for literature by moving readers beyond brand loyalty to individual writers, helping them develop the confidence to try something new. And again, here we can see a clear, important role for public libraries in terms of improving people's lives. The idea that you can say to people, look, here's a range of books that you might enjoy because you like this particular genre, this particular writer. It's not about saying one piece of literature is better than another. It's about opening people up to new experiences and new worldviews. And that in itself improves how they see the world. It opens up their world to new initiatives and new experiences. An important organisation related to reading promotion and reader development is the reading agency itself. Now, if you work in libraries, you already know of some of their promotions and some of their campaigns. You probably have materials from them in your library service at the moment. And they're responsible for a number of national programmes aimed at the promotion of reading, including things like Richard and Judy Book Club, ITV Crime Thriller Awards, and a really important one is the annual Summer Reading Challenge, which is aimed at young people, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, the focus on promoting reading for children and young people is an absolutely crucial aspect of what public libraries do. It's extremely important, it has massive value for society, and really it is one of the core functions of what public libraries do. And there are campaigns that range from infancy through to teenage years. One of the earliest campaigns is the Book Starter Book Box scheme, where every child born in the UK is given a pack containing board books and booklets that discuss the importance of reading to the child from a parent perspective. And parents are also given a library card for their child and encouraged to visit the library to engage with other library activities for babies and toddlers. Another important programme for very young children is the Bounce and Rhyme scheme, where parents can take their young toddler along to a Bounce and Rhyme session, and all of the parents and children sit around and basically sing nursery rhymes and take part in that social aspect of it as well as the learning aspect for the children. I mentioned the Summer Reading Challenge earlier, but again, this is an important aspect of what libraries do. It's a very, very high profile campaign that runs every summer. It was started in 1999, organised by the Reading Agency, and it's normally a themed campaign aimed at the summer holiday period for children to encourage them to keep reading during the summer. And one of the incentives that they get is small prizes for reading certain numbers of books. Now, the theme changes each year. In 2018, the campaign is called Mischief Makers, and it relates to some of the Beano characters. Another important aspect of reading and how it can help society relates to the concept of bibliotherapy. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that bibliotherapy is a new concept in libraries, but it's actually been a professional discussion topic in libraries since around the 1930s. And what it's about is the use of selected reading materials as therapeutic tools in medicine and psychiatry. But it also relates to guidance in the solution of personal problems through directed reading, and the use of books to influence total development, including personality assessment, adjustment, growth, and clinical and mental hygiene. So there have been various bibliotherapy campaigns. Some are driven by the health service. There's things like books on prescription, where local GPs can prescribe specific kinds of reading to patients. And libraries have been central in this whole rollout of bibliotherapy in recent years, and it can have a significant impact on the quality of life of people. So it's something, again, that public libraries are increasingly being involved in, and it's something that has massive value for society in doing so. So just to conclude Lecture 2, public libraries provide a range of initiatives to promote the value of reading and literacy within their communities. And the key features are a focus on serving the community, understanding their information needs, but also ensuring empathy and respect for all members of the community, understanding that everyone has an interest, a potential interest that a library can help solve. And we've talked about a lot of different types of access today. We've talked about ensuring that censorship doesn't happen, ensuring that we have robust responses to any challenges to books. We've talked about reading promotion. We've talked about children's initiatives, adult initiatives. We've talked about the great fiction question and how to justify why fiction lending is important. All of these concepts really can fall under the umbrella of freedom of access to information and equity of access to information. And if you can remember that fundamental mission of libraries as being equity of access, all of these features become important aspects of that. So hopefully over the 2 lectures you've got a good idea of what public libraries should be about and what they should be providing in terms of services to the public. Just to reiterate from Lecture 1, public libraries are vitally important services for the general public and for society. They help create active citizens, they help educate people and promote literacy and reading, they help strengthen communities in various areas, they help develop local history, they help develop a sense of identity within communities, and these are all things that anyone working in public libraries should highly value and be able to articulate to the users and also anyone who challenges the notion of what public libraries are there for.